So we've been having a conversation now for what, a year, close to a year, a little longer, about the partisan uptake of the COVID vaccines. And one of the most anti-vaccine groups today with regard to the COVID vaccines is Republicans, and in particular Trump voters. Non-Trump voting Republicans are slightly less anti-vax than Trump voting Republicans, who are like the most anti-vax. And we know why this has happened. We know about the way that their view on the vaccines has reversed simply because Donald Trump is no longer in office and now Joe Biden is. And we've talked also about the increasingly partisan COVID deaths, where much more now by an almost 50% higher rate, the cumulative COVID death rate in Trump counties is higher than in Biden voting counties. They're killing themselves at a disproportionately high rate relative to Democrats. And at some point, it may make an electoral difference. But we now have new data, and this is going beyond just the COVID vaccine. The acceptance of the flu vaccine, as we now are getting into flu season in the United States, is also heavily partisan, and it didn't used to be. You used to see almost identical levels of flu vaccination from Democrats as you saw from Republicans. No more. We have the data, and the data is quite detailed. Flu shot uptake is now partisan, and it didn't used to be. So we have two polls from flu shot uptake right now. OK, according to Ipsos, 68% of Democrats said they have gotten a flu shot or are very likely to get one, whereas only 44% of Republicans said the same. So that's a 24-point gap between Democrats and Republicans on the flu shot, similar to the COVID gap that exists. A second poll from this year shows the same thing. 65% of Democrats said they did or will definitely get a flu shot, and only 40% of Republicans. That's a 25-point partisan gap on the flu shot. That's not the way it always used to be. For example, last year, there was an AP NORC poll, and it said, did you get a flu shot in the last year? In that poll, 58% of Democrats said, I got a flu shot in the last year, whereas only 54% of Republicans did. That was a 4-point gap. It's almost the margin of error. OK, so you used to have almost even flu shot acceptance between Republicans and Democrats. Now you have a gap where by 24, 25 points, Democrats are significantly more vaccinated against the flu, as are Republicans. Another just data point about past partisan gap. If you look at a 2016 study from Princeton Survey Research, you had 55% of Democrats and 53% of Republicans saying, I got a flu shot in the last 12 months. So there was almost no partisan gap whatsoever. So in all seriousness, are Republicans hurting themselves electorally because of this? If they just keep dying, it at some point is going to start impacting your population. So let's talk about what's not new. Science has had a partisan divide for a long time. So take the issue of climate change. For decades now, the right has disproportionately rejected the science on climate, including the reality that humans are impacting changing climate on planet Earth. Republicans have rejected that. Now, the thing about climate is it mostly affects everybody regardless of partisanship. Now, you can make the case, well, the more we burn fossil fuels, poor people disproportionately are downwind from the emissions from burning fossil fuels. So it's causing more cancer in poor people. And to the extent that there's a partisan divide there, maybe. OK, so you can make a case. This is just straight up partisan with the vaccines. The Republicans are disproportionately not getting vaccinated against COVID. The Republicans are now also, as of this year, disproportionately not getting vaccinated against the flu. At a certain point, you're going to kill your own voters, and it could make a difference. Now, we've looked at the data. What would it take to make a difference? There was this example, and I'll talk through the generalities of it, but we should really look at the data again. Back in, let me see when it was, Florida gubernatorial election results. When Ron DeSantis ran, In 2018, Ron DeSantis won by 0.4% over Andrew Gillum. I forget the pronunciation now. It was a difference of 33,000 votes. 33,000 votes were the margin for Ron DeSantis in Florida as governor in the year 2018. Now, in Florida, there are 61,000 COVID deaths that we know of, and there are very serious questions about the degree to which Florida is coming even close to reporting all the deaths from COVID. So if there's 60,000, there's probably really at least 70,000. Let's pick that number. If they were evenly split between Democrats and Republicans, 70,000 COVID deaths would mean 35,000 Democrats and 35,000 Republicans. Now, if you have a partisan gap there, if you imagine, well, if the Florida data tracks the national data and Republicans are dying at, let's call it a 50% higher rate, all of a sudden those 70,000 deaths might look more like 50,000 Republicans and 20,000 Democrats. That's a 30,000 death gap. The margin for victory for DeSantis was only about 33,000 ballots in 2018. So you can very quickly see how if this continues to go on, and the partisan gap is there on COVID deaths because of vaccination, and we start to see a partisan gap on flu deaths, again, because Republicans are now starting to reject the flu vaccine as well. In Florida, it's totally plausible that as a result of deaths from COVID and flu alone, it could flip an election from a Republican governor to a Democratic governor. Okay, those are the numbers in Florida. We'd have to see where else this applies. This is a reality, and I'm not giving Republicans advice. If they're not worried about this and they're not realizing how quickly the numbers could go against them here, it's their problem. But you would think even if they don't care about the human tragedy of these deaths, that they would care about the electoral consequences that potentially could happen. So that's the latest on flu shot, and we're going to continue watching how those numbers look.